The stars looked different from the bridge of the Harmony's edge. Captain Lee Juno stood with his hands behind his back, watching the Valerian Empire's home system grow larger on the viewscreen. His uniform was perfectly pressed, his dark hair neatly combed. He needed to make a good impression. Humanity's future might depend on it. "Captain, we're receiving their docking coordinates," said Lieutenant Park Sora from the communication station. Her voice was steady, but Junho could hear the nervousness underneath. Everyone on the ship felt it. "Thank you, Sora. Take us in nice and slow. Let's not give them any reason to think we're aggressive." The Valerian homeworld was beautiful. 3 silver moons orbited a planet that sparkled like a blue-green jewel. Massive space stations surrounded it, each one larger than Earth's biggest city. The Valerians had been traveling among the stars for thousands of years, while humans were still learning to make fire. They never let humanity forget it. Junho had spent 6 months preparing for this mission. He learned the Valerian language until he could speak it without an accent. He studied their history, their customs, their art. He knew that most Valerians thought humans were primitive and dangerous. The propaganda broadcasts from their empire said humans were violent, chaotic, and not worthy of respect. Junho intended to prove them wrong. The docking process took 2 hours. Valerian security was thorough. They scanned every inch of the Harmony's edge 3 times. Finally, Junho received permission to board their station with a small team. He chose Sora and engineer Kim Daeon to accompany him. Both were smart, calm, and good at reading situations. The docking bay was enormous and perfectly clean. Everything gleamed like crystal. A group of Valerian officials waited for them. They were tall and elegant, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their eyes were large and completely silver, with no pupils. They wore flowing robes in shades of white and blue dot. In the center stood a woman who could only be Princess Aria. She was taller than Juno by several inches, with long silver hair that floated slightly as if moved by an invisible breeze. Her expression was cold and distant. She looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects under glass. Junho stepped forward and bowed in the formal Valerian style, his right hand over his heart. "Your Highness, I am Captain Lee Juno of the Human Federation. Thank you for allowing us to dock at your station. We are honored to be here." He spoke in perfect Valerian formal dialect. Princess Aria's eyes widened slightly. It was the first crack in her composed expression. "You speak our language," she said. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes. "I tried to learn it properly, Your Highness. I know it's probably not perfect, but I wanted to show respect to your culture." Something flickered across Aria's face. Surprise, maybe, or suspicion. Most humans don't bother to learn. They expect us to speak their languages. "Then most humans are rude," Junho said simply. "If I'm visiting your home, the least I can do is speak your language." The other Valerian officials exchanged glances. Their telepathic abilities meant they could communicate without words. Junho wished he knew what they were saying to each other. "Come," Aria said finally. "I will show you to your quarters. Tomorrow we begin negotiations." The tour of the station should have been routine, but Junho asked questions about everything. He wanted to understand how the Valerians thought, how they built things, what they valued. Aria answered his questions with growing curiosity. She had expected demands and arrogance. Instead, this human captain seemed genuinely interested in learning. "Why did you become a soldier?" Aria asked as they walked through a garden dome filled with alien plants. "Your file says you could have been a scientist or a teacher." "I became a captain because I wanted to protect people," Juno said, "and maybe help them understand each other better. There's so much we don't know about the galaxy. So many species we've never met. Fighting seems like a waste when we could be learning from each other." A soldier who prefers peace, Arya said. That's unusual, is it? Don't your soldiers want peace too? Arya didn't answer. In Valerian culture, the military nobility saw war as a path to honor and advancement. Peace was for the weak. But she found herself wondering if that was really true. The next morning, negotiations began badly. The Valerian High Command sat on one side of a massive crystal table, the human delegation on the other. Junho requested access to 3 star systems on the border between human and Valerian space. They were unclaimed and rich in resources humanity desperately needed. The Valerian commanders dismissed the request immediately. Those systems are in our sphere of influence, said Lord Kale, a military commander with a scarred face and cold eyes. Humans have no right to them. We're not asking for ownership, Juno said patiently. We're asking for mining rights. We would pay fair compensation. And no, this meeting is over. Junho took a deep breath. Losing his temper wouldn't help. But before he could speak again, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Arya touched her temple, receiving telepathic communications from across the station. The trade station at Helios Point is under attack, she said, her face pale. The Drenics swarm. They're slaughtering everyone. The Drenics were a nightmare species. They were parasites that took over other beings and used their bodies like puppets. They spread through space like a plague, destroying everything in their path. Both humans and Valerians had fought them before, but never together. How many people are on that station? Junho asked. 300. Maybe more. Civilians from a dozen different species. Arya's voice was tight. Our nearest military response is 4 hours away. We can be there in 30 minutes, Junho said immediately. Lord Kale laughed. You want to fight the Drenics with one small ship? That's suicide. Maybe, but 300 people will die if we don't try. Junho looked at Arya. Your Highness, I'm going whether you approve or not. But it would be better if we went together. Combined forces. What do you say? Arya stared at him. This human was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. But he was right. Those people would die without help. I'll come with you, she said. And I'm bringing a squad of our best fighters. Lord Kale started to protest, but Arya silenced him with a look. She was royalty. He couldn't refuse her order. 30 minutes later, the Harmony's Edge jumped to faster-than-light speed with a Valerian assault shuttle attached to its hull. Junho stood on the bridge, checking weapon systems and planning their approach. Arya stood beside him, watching how he worked. Why are you really doing this? She asked quietly. Junho glanced at her. Because it's right. Because those people need help. Isn't that enough? For humans, maybe. Valerians calculate risks and benefits before acting. And what's your calculation telling you? Arya smiled for the first time since they'd met. It transformed her face from cold beauty to something warmer. That I'm about to do something very stupid with a human who's either crazy or the bravest person I've ever met. Let's hope it's both, Junho said. We're going to need all the help we can get. The Helios Point trade station looked like a dying animal. Hull breaches leaked atmosphere into the void. Bodies floated in the darkness. The Drenics had come in force, at least 50 of the creatures swarming through the station's corridors. Junho's team assembled in the shuttle bay. Park Sora checked her medical supplies while Kim Daeon prepared breaching equipment. The Valerian soldiers looked impressive in their silver armor, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Princess Arya wore armor too, though hers was decorated with her royal markings. We go in 3 teams, Junho said, pointing to a map of the station. Daeon's team secures the reactor and life support. Sora's team finds survivors and gets them to the shuttle bay. My team clears a path and holds the exit point. Your Highness, where would you be most useful? Arya had expected Junho to put her somewhere safe, away from the real fighting. That's what Valerian nobles usually did with royalty. But he was asking her like she was any other soldier. I'll go with your team, she said. My telepathic abilities can sense the Drenics before they attack. I can give you warning. Perfect. Let's move. The boarding action was chaos from the start. The Drenics were worse up close than in any video. They were insect-like creatures the size of large dogs, but they controlled the bodies of their victims like puppets. Former traders and station workers stumbled toward them with dead eyes and jerking movements. Inside each one, a Drenix parasite pulled the strings. Arya's telepathic senses screamed warnings. She could feel the alien hunger of the Drenix, their desire to spread and consume. But she could also sense Junho beside her, his mind remarkably calm despite the horror around him. He didn't panic. He just did what needed to be done. They fought their way through 2 decks. Junho's tactics were different from anything Arya had seen. Valerian soldiers relied on their telepathic coordination, moving as one mind. Humans couldn't do that, so they adapted. They used hand signals, called out warnings, and covered each other through pure trust and training. It was messy and chaotic, but it worked. Left corridor, 3 contacts. Arya called out. Junho's team moved instantly. They set up a crossfire and eliminated the Drenix-controlled victims quickly and efficiently. It was mercy, really. The people inside those bodies were already dead. The parasites just wore their skin. Sora, status? Junho asked through his communication device. We found survivors in the medical bay. 20 people, mostly children. We need 5 more minutes to get them ready to move. Copy that. We'll hold position. But the Drenix had other plans. A wall exploded inward, and suddenly they were everywhere. The creatures swarmed from the ventilation systems, dropping from the ceiling, crawling from every dark corner. Junho's team fought desperately, but they were being pushed back. Fall back to the shuttle bay. Junho ordered. Everyone move now. In the chaos, Arya got separated. She found herself alone in a maintenance corridor, surrounded by clicking, hissing Drenix. Her energy weapon dropped 3 of them, but more kept coming. Her telepathic abilities let her predict their attacks, but she was only one person. They were going to overwhelm her. Then Junho came crashing through a doorway like a missile. He had left his team, had come back alone into the most dangerous part of the station. For her, come on, he shouted, grabbing her arm. They ran together through the twisting corridors. Junho knew the station layout like he had memorized it, which he probably had. But the Drenix were faster. They caught up in a dead-end storage room. There was nowhere left to run. Junho pushed Arya behind him and raised his rifle. His body language said he was ready to die right here, buying her time to find another way out. It was the single most foolish and brave thing she had ever seen. Don't be stupid, Arya said. She raised her hands, and crystal formations erupted from her skin. It was a Valerian ability, a biological defense mechanism that turned their bodies into living weapons. She created a barrier of sharp crystal between them and the Drenix. The creatures slammed into the barrier, screaming. Junho fired through gaps in the crystal, his shots precise and deadly. They fought back to back, alien princess and human captain, holding off an army of nightmares. You know, Junho said, killing another Drenix. This is probably the worst first mission together we could have had. Arya laughed. She actually laughed in the middle of a fight for their lives. You're insane. I get that a lot. Duck, she ducked. Junho threw a grenade over her head. The explosion cleared the corridor, enough for them to run. They made it back to the shuttle bay with seconds to spare. Daeun had the reactor stabilized. Sora had all the survivors loaded on shuttles. The evacuation was complete. As they pulled away from the dying station, Junho counted heads. 347 survivors. They had saved everyone who was still alive when they arrived. His crew had performed miracles. The Valerian soldiers looked exhausted, but proud. Arya found Junho in the medical bay later. He was sitting on a bed while Sora treated a nasty cut on his shoulder. He had taken a hit from a Drennick's claw when he came back for her. The wound was deep and would scar. "You shouldn't have come back for me," Arya said quietly. Junho looked up at her, confused. "Of course I came back. You're part of my team. I'm not your soldier. I'm a Valerian princess. You don't risk your life for visiting royalty." "I don't risk my life for titles," Junho said. "I risk my life for people. And you're a person who needed help. Simple as that." It wasn't simple at all. In Valerian culture, nobles were more valuable than common soldiers. They were protected at all costs, even if others had to die. But Junho had treated her like any other team member. He had risked everything to save her, not because of her title, but because it was the right thing to do. "Thank you," she said. It was the first time she had thanked a human for anything. Junho smiled. "Thank you for saving me too. That crystal barrier trick was impressive. I didn't know your people could do that. Most can't. It's a rare ability in my family line." She sat down next to him. "How did you know the station layout so well?" "I studied it before we left. Spent 3 hours memorizing every corridor and junction point. Old habit from my military training. Always know your battlefield before you arrive. You prepared for a mission you didn't even know you were going to do. I prepare for everything. Hope for the best. Plan for the worst." The survivors they had rescued started spreading their story as soon as they reached safety. Social media across multiple species networks filled with images and videos of the rescue. Humans and Valerians fighting together. A human captain risking his life for a Valerian princess. A princess fighting beside common soldiers instead of hiding in safety. The story reached the Valerian homeworld within hours. Citizens who had been taught to hate and fear humans suddenly saw something different. Bravery, sacrifice, cooperation. The propaganda machine had a hard time explaining why the primitive, violent humans had saved 300 lives while asking for nothing in return. Arya visited Junho every day during his recovery. She told herself it was just for debriefing, to discuss tactical lessons from the mission. But the truth was more complicated. She enjoyed talking to him. He saw the galaxy differently than any Valerian she had ever met. "Tell me about Earth," she said one evening. They were in the observation deck, watching stars drift by. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. What's it like? Your cities, your oceans, your people?" So Junho told her. He described Earth's blue oceans and green forests. He talked about the millions of different cultures, languages, and traditions packed onto one small planet. He explained how humans had almost destroyed themselves with wars and pollution, but had chosen to change, to work together, to reach for the stars. "We're not perfect," he admitted. "We make mistakes. We fight and argue and disagree about everything. But we try to do better. That's what makes us human, I think. The trying." Arya listened carefully. Everything she had been taught about humans said they were dangerous, unstable, unworthy of respect. But Junho was thoughtful, brave, and kind. He led with compassion instead of fear. He valued every life equally, regardless of species or status. "The court is talking about us," she said quietly. "About how much time I spend with you. Is that bad?" "It could be. Valerian royalty doesn't mix casually with other species. It's seen as inappropriate. Jun-ho was quiet for a moment. Do you want me to stay away? No, Arya said, surprising herself. No, I don't. The Valerian royal palace was beyond anything Jun-ho had imagined. Towers of crystal and light reached toward the sky. Gardens filled with plants from 100 worlds surrounded pools of water that floated in the air. Everything was designed to show power and beauty in equal measure. Jun-ho's delegation had been invited to stay at the palace while negotiations continued. It was a great honor, but Arya warned him it was also a test. The court wanted to observe the humans closely, to find weaknesses they could exploit. Don't trust anyone except me, Arya had told him quietly. Court politics here are deadly. Jun-ho met Arya's mother, Empress Selene, on the third day. She was tall and regal, with silver hair that floated around her head like a crown. Her eyes were ancient and calculating. She looked at Jun-ho the way a scientist might look at an interesting specimen. Captain Lee Jun-ho, she said in perfect human English. My daughter speaks highly of you. That's unusual. Arya doesn't praise people easily. Your Majesty, your daughter is an exceptional person. I've been honored to work with her. Work with her, Selene repeated, her lips curving into a slight smile. Is that what you call it? The court sees something different. They see a human spending excessive time with our princess. They wonder about your intentions. Jun-ho kept his expression neutral. He had expected this conversation. My intentions are to build a strong alliance between our peoples. Nothing more. Good, because Arya is already promised to Lord Kale. Their union will secure a military alliance with House Kale that we desperately need. Personal feelings cannot interfere with political necessity. The words hit Jun-ho harder than he expected. He had known Arya was royalty, that she had duties and obligations. But hearing it stated so plainly made it real. She wasn't free to choose her own path. She was a piece on a political game board. I understand, Your Majesty. Do you? Selene leaned forward. I actually like you, Captain. You're brave, intelligent, and you've been good for Arya. She smiles more since meeting you. But liking someone doesn't change reality. Arya will marry Kale in 6 months. If you care about her at all, you'll let her go. That evening, the palace held a traditional bonding ceremony. It was a formal dance where Valerians could test mental compatibility with potential partners. Through physical touch and movement, telepathic minds could achieve brief harmony, a preview of what marriage between two telepaths would feel like. The ballroom was magnificent. Hundreds of Valerians in formal robes danced in complex patterns. Jun-ho's delegation attended as honored guests, though they couldn't participate in the telepathic aspects. Jun-ho wore his dress uniform and felt completely out of place. He watched Arya dance with Lord Kale. Kale was handsome by Valerian standards, with sharp features and confident movements. He was also arrogant and cold. Jun-ho could see it in how he held Arya, like she was a prize he had already won. Arya's face was perfectly blank, showing nothing, but Jun-ho had learned to read her small tells. The slight tension in her shoulders. The way her eyes looked past Kale instead of at him. She was enduring the dance, not enjoying it. When the song ended, Kale led Arya to a balcony. Jun-ho knew he should stay away, should follow Empress Selene's advice. Instead, he found himself walking toward them. Your Highness, he said, interrupting their conversation, would you honor me with a dance? The request was scandalous. Humans didn't participate in bonding ceremonies. They couldn't achieve telepathic harmony. So what was the point? Every Valerian in the ballroom turned to stare. Kale's face darkened with anger. The human doesn't understand our customs, Kale said coldly. This ceremony is for Valerians only. The ceremony is for anyone the princess wishes to dance with, Arya said quietly. She pulled away from Kale and took Jun-ho's hand. I would be honored, Captain. They walked to the center of the ballroom. Junho had no idea how to do traditional Valerian dances, but Arya guided him gently. Just follow my lead, she whispered. And don't think too hard. Let your mind relax. The music started, slow and haunting. Junho focused on Arya's hands in his, on the movement of her body, on the rhythm of the music. He let his thoughts drift the way she taught him during their meditation sessions together. Then something incredible happened. Junho felt Arya's thoughts brush against his own. It should have been impossible. Humans weren't telepathic. But somehow, in that moment, their minds touched. He felt her loneliness, her desire to be free, her fear of losing herself to duty. He felt her warmth when she thought of him, a warmth she showed no one else, and Arya felt Junho's mind in return. She felt his determination to protect people, his grief over the crew members he had lost in past battles, his deep loneliness as a captain who could never show weakness. She felt his respect for her, not as a princess, but as a person. She felt something deeper too, something neither of them had admitted yet. The connection broke when the music ended, leaving them both breathless and shaken. The ballroom was silent. Every Valerian had felt what happened, a mental resonance that shouldn't have been possible. A human and a Valerian achieving what some Valerian couples couldn't manage after years together. Lord Kale's face was white with rage. He stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silent room. That was an insult to our traditions. Captain Junho has violated sacred customs. I challenge him to a duel of minds. Let us see if his mental tricks work when facing a true Valerian warrior. The challenge was formal and binding. Junho couldn't refuse without dishonoring his entire delegation. Arya looked horrified. You can't fight him, she said urgently. Mental duels are deadly. You're not trained for this. I know, Junho said quietly. But I can't refuse. Empress Selene stepped forward. The challenge is accepted. The duel will take place in 3 days, giving Captain Junho time to prepare. She looked at her daughter. Arya, you will not interfere. That's an order. But Arya had no intention of obeying. That night, she went to Junho's quarters in secret. I'm going to help you, she said. I'm going to teach you everything I know about mental combat. Your mother ordered you not to help me. My mother orders many things. I don't always listen. Arya sat down across from him. You achieved resonance with me, Junho. That means you have latent telepathic potential. It's rare in humans, but not impossible. We need to develop it fast. They trained for 3 days, barely sleeping. Arya taught Junho meditation techniques to strengthen his mental defenses. She showed him how to compartmentalize his thoughts, how to create mental barriers, how to anchor himself when under telepathic assault. But more than training happened during those long nights. They talked about everything. About their hopes and fears. About duty versus desire. About what they wanted from life. Do you love him? Junho asked one night. Kale, I mean. No, Arya said simply. I barely know him. Royal marriages aren't about love. They're about power and alliances. That sounds lonely. It is. She looked at him carefully. What about you? Is there someone waiting for you back on Earth? No. Being a captain doesn't leave much time for relationships. And I could never ask someone to wait for me between missions that might get me killed. He smiled sadly. Lonely for both of us, I guess. Junho, why did you ask me to dance? You knew it would cause problems. He was quiet for a long time. Because watching you dance with someone you didn't want to be with hurt more than I expected. Because I wanted one moment where you could choose for yourself instead of doing what others demanded. Because I'm selfish. Arya reached out and took his hand. That's the least selfish reason I've ever heard. The night before the duel, Arya gave Junho one final lesson. Kale will try to overwhelm you with raw power. He's been trained since childhood in mental combat. You can't beat him that way. Then how do I beat him? You don't. You survive. You endure. Humans have something Valerians don't, something we lost thousands of years ago when we became telepathic. You have mental chaos, unpredictability. Your thoughts don't flow in organized patterns. They jump and swirl and change direction constantly. That chaos is actually a defense. Kale will find it nearly impossible to get a solid grip on your mind. So I just have to not lose for long enough that he gives up? Basically, yes. It's not elegant, but it might work. Jun-Ho smiled. Not elegant is kind of humanity's specialty. The dual arena was an ancient place, carved from crystal that pulsed with soft light. Thousands of Valerians gathered to watch, both in person and through telepathic broadcasts that would reach billions across their empire. This was more than a fight between two individuals. It was humanity being tested against Valerian superiority. Junho walked to the center of the arena wearing simple clothes. No armor, no weapons. Mental duels required none of those things. Across from him, Lord Kale stood tall and confident. He smiled coldly at Jun-Ho. You should have stayed away from her, human. Now you'll pay for your arrogance with your mind. When I'm finished, you won't remember your own name. Jun-Ho didn't respond. He focused on his breathing, on the meditation techniques Arya had taught him. He could feel her in the crowd, her concern radiating toward him. He drew strength from knowing she believed in him. Empress Celine raised her hand. Let the duel begin. The attack hit Jun-Ho like a hammer. Kale's mind crashed into his, trying to tear through his defenses by sheer force. Jun-Ho felt pain explode behind his eyes. He stumbled but didn't fall. He built walls in his mind, imagining them as steel and stone, blocking Kale's assault. But Kale was experienced. He found cracks in Jun-Ho's defenses, exploiting them ruthlessly. Jun-Ho felt memories being pulled to the surface. His parents' deaths in a transport accident. The first crew member he had lost in combat, a young pilot named Hana, his failures and regrets all exposed and used against him. The pain was incredible. Jun-Ho fell to his knees, blood running from his nose. The crowd murmured. This was going as expected. The human would break in minutes, but Jun-Ho didn't break. He did something Kale didn't expect. Instead of fighting the assault, he accepted it. He let the memories flow, acknowledged the pain, and then let it pass through him. It was a technique from human psychology, something Arya hadn't taught him because Valerians didn't think that way. Acceptance instead of resistance. Kale found himself attacking a target that wouldn't stay still. Jun-Ho's thoughts scattered and reformed like water. Every time Kale thought he had a grip, Jun-Ho's mind shifted to something completely different. A song his mother used to sing, the smell of Earth's oceans, the taste of coffee. Random, chaotic human thoughts that made no sense to Kale's ordered Valerian mind. The duel stretched on. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. Kale began to sweat. He had never fought someone for this long. His opponents usually broke quickly under his power. But Jun-Ho kept enduring, kept surviving, using techniques Kale had never seen because they came from a completely different way of thinking. Junho anchored himself on memories of his crew, of the people he had saved, of Arya's smile. Every time Kale tried to destroy those anchors, Jun-Ho just made new ones. His mind was a fortress built on sand that constantly shifted, impossible to destroy because it had no fixed form dot at 30 minutes. Kale made a desperate final assault, throwing all his power into one crushing attack. Jun-Ho screamed as his mental defenses cracked. But in that moment, he did something instinctive. He opened his mind completely and let Kale see everything. All his memories, all his emotions, all his humanity laid bare. The shock of it stunned Kale. He saw Junho's love for his crew, his belief that all intelligent life deserved respect, his willingness to die for strangers. He saw Junho's feelings for Arya, pure and deep and entirely selfless. The human loved her enough to face this duel, knowing he would probably lose. Just to give her a moment of choice, Kale pulled back in confusion and disgust. He didn't understand these emotions. They seemed weak to him. But in his confusion, he lost his focus. The assault faltered. Junho seized the moment. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to survive. He rebuilt his defenses one more time, pouring everything he had left into holding on just a little longer. And then it was Kale who collapsed. He had exhausted himself trying to break what couldn't be broken. He lay on the arena floor, gasping, defeated not by superior power, but by his own limitations. He couldn't understand the human mind, couldn't adapt to its chaos, couldn't break someone whose strength came from accepting weakness. The arena fell silent. A human had fought a trained Valerian mental warrior to a standstill. The propaganda said it was impossible. The broadcasts had expected to show human inferiority. Instead, billions of Valerians watched a human demonstrate impossible resilience. Junho barely made it off the arena floor. Sora caught him as he fell, getting him to medical care immediately. The mental strain had been enormous. He would need days to recover. But he had survived. Against all odds, he had survived. Arya found him in the medical bay hours later. She sat beside his bed, holding his hand while he slept. When he finally woke, she was crying. Valerians rarely cried, but tears ran down her face. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen," she said. Junho smiled weakly. "Did I win?" "It was declared a draw. But yes, you won. You showed every Valerian, watching that humans are stronger than we believed." She squeezed his hand. "Why did you do it? You could have refused the challenge, left the planet, gone home safely. Because you're worth fighting for. Not the princess. You, Arya, the person who saves civilians and questions traditions and wants to explore the galaxy. I couldn't let Kale hurt you, even if marrying him is your duty." "It was my duty," Arya said quietly. Past tense. "After watching you fight for me, I realized I can't marry someone I don't love. I don't care about political alliances or what the court expects. I want to choose my own path. Your mother will never allow it." "My mother might not have a choice." Arya's face was grim. "While you were unconscious, we received terrible news. The Drenics have launched a massive invasion of our border worlds. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. They're overwhelming our defenses. We're losing entire colonies." Junho tried to sit up, but pain lanced through his head. "How bad?" "Bad enough that my mother is considering the unthinkable, asking humanity for military help. Our empire has never asked another species for assistance before. But we're desperate. The Drenics are using new tactics, hive mind coordination that counters our telepathic advantages." A plan was forming in Junho's tired mind. A crazy plan, but possibly the only one that could work. "Call your mother. I want to make a proposal." Empress Selene came to the medical bay, which showed how serious the situation was. She looked exhausted, the weight of her empire on her shoulders. "Captain Junho, you wish to speak with me?" "Your Majesty, I want to propose a full military alliance between humanity and the Valerian Empire. Not just cooperation, but a permanent bond. Combined fleets, shared technology, unified command structures. That would require unprecedented trust between our peoples. What makes you think it's possible?" "Because your daughter and I proved it's possible. We fought together on that station. We achieved mental resonance despite belonging to different species. We can bridge the gap if we try. Junho took a deep breath. Traditionally, alliances between great powers are sealed by marriage between ruling families. Humanity has no royalty, but I hold the rank of captain and serve as an official diplomat. My position could be considered equivalent to minor nobility. Salini's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. You want to marry my daughter. I want to offer humanity's commitment to this alliance in the strongest possible way. If Princess Arya agrees, of course. I would never presume to make this decision for her. This is insane, Celine said. But she didn't say no. You understand that if I agree to this, you would be giving up your freedom? Royal consorts have strict duties and limitations. You couldn't just be a ship captain anymore. I understand. But I'd be helping two civilizations work together. That's worth any personal sacrifice. Celine looked at her daughter. Arya, you've been unusually quiet. Arya was staring at Junho with an expression he couldn't read. Finally, she spoke. You chose me as your wife? You would bind yourself to political chains for an alliance? I'm choosing you as my partner, Junho said firmly. The alliance is just the excuse that makes it politically acceptable. I'm choosing you because I love you. Because I want to spend my life learning everything about your culture and teaching you about mine. Because together, we're stronger than apart. The political benefits are just a bonus. The words hung in the air. Arya's silver eyes were wide, showing more emotion than Junho had ever seen in them. You love me? Yes, I know I probably shouldn't. I know it's complicated and difficult and will cause all kinds of problems. But yes, I love you. Arya stood up, walked to his bedside, and kissed him. It was gentle and sweet and absolutely perfect. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Then I accept. I choose you too, Junho, not because of duty or politics. Because you're the first person who ever saw me as just Arya instead of Princess Arya. Because you make me want to be brave enough to choose my own path. Empress Celine watched her daughter with mixed emotions. Pride, concern, hope, fear. Finally, she nodded. Very well. I'll announce the engagement and the alliance simultaneously. The court won't like it, but the court doesn't have better options right now. We need humanity's help, and this marriage will make the alliance legitimate in Valerian eyes. She left to make preparations, leaving Junho and Arya alone. They held hands, both understanding that they had just changed the course of history for two entire civilizations. Are you scared? Arya asked. Terrified, Junho admitted, but also excited. We're going to do amazing things together. Yes, Arya said softly. Yes, we are. The announcement of the engagement sent shockwaves through both civilizations. On Earth, people couldn't believe their diplomatic captain was marrying an alien princess. Among Valerians, conservative nobles were outraged that their royalty would mix blood with humans. But the common people of both species saw something different. They saw hope. The wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks away, but first there was a war to fight. The Drennick's invasion was spreading faster than anyone predicted. 3 Valerian colonies had already gone silent, their entire populations likely taken by the parasites. The Valerian military was fighting desperately, but they were losing ground. Chunho recovered quickly from the mental duel, driven by necessity. He took command of humanity's contribution to the defense. A fleet of 30 ships, including his own soul's pride. It wasn't much compared to the Valerian armada of hundreds. But human ships brought different capabilities. They were more maneuverable, designed for unpredictable tactics rather than the coordinated precision Valerians preferred. The combined fleet gathered at the border world of Talos Prime. This was where they would make their stand. If Talos fell, The Drennics would have a clear path to the Valerian core worlds. The battle would decide the fate of billions. UNHO stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride, looking at the tactical display. The Drennics' fleet was enormous, at least 400 ships of various sizes. They moved in perfect synchronization, controlled by hive mind intelligence that made them terrifyingly efficient. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Park Sora said from her station. She had been promoted to first officer and wore her new rank proudly. "Good. Open a channel to the Valerian flagship." Princess Aria's face appeared on the screen. She wore full battle armor now, serving as the fleet's telepathic coordinator. Her role was to link the minds of Valerian commanders, allowing instant communication and coordination. It was exhausting and dangerous work, but she insisted on doing it. "Human fleet is in position," Junho reported formally. Then he smiled slightly. "Hello, beautiful." Aria's serious expression softened for just a moment. "Hello, my love. Try not to die today. We have a wedding to attend." "Same to you. I'm rather attached to my bride." The moment of likeness passed. Both of them knew the odds weren't good. The Drennics outnumbered them badly and had already proven they could counter traditional Valerian tactics. But they had one advantage the enemy didn't expect: humanity. The battle began with the Drennics' fleet advancing in a perfect wall formation, intending to crush the defenders through overwhelming force. The Valerian ships met them with coordinated volleys, their energy weapons flashing in perfect synchronization. It was beautiful and deadly, but the Drennics adapted quickly. Their hive mind learned the patterns and adjusted their shields accordingly. Valerian casualties began mounting. "Human fleet, you are clear to engage," came the order from Valerian Command. JUNHO smiled. "All ships, execute pattern chaos. Let's show them what humans do best." The human ships broke formation and scattered in what looked like complete disorder. They attacked from random angles, using unpredictable maneuvers that made no tactical sense by conventional standards. One ship would dive low while another climbed high. They used asteroids for cover, appeared from unexpected vectors, and changed tactics every few minutes. The Drennics' hive mind couldn't predict the chaos. They tried to adapt, but by the time they figured out one human ship's pattern, that ship was doing something completely different. It was the same principle that had let Junho survive the mental duel, applied to space combat. Controlled chaos, defeating rigid order. Aria coordinated the Valerian response through the telepathic network. But she also maintained a link to Junho. She could feel his mind during the battle, calm and focused despite the chaos around him. That mental connection let her coordinate in ways that shouldn't have been possible. She could predict what the human fleet would do because she felt Junho's intentions, then position Valerian ships to support them. The battle raged for hours. Ships exploded on both sides. Good people died defending their homes. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The combined human-Valerian tactics were working. The Drennics couldn't counter both the precise coordination of the Valerians and the chaotic unpredictability of the humans. Then, disaster struck. A Drennics capital ship broke through the defensive line and launched a boarding assault on the Valerian flagship. Dozens of enemy troops teleported directly onto the bridge, targeting the command staff and the Empress herself. "All ships, the flagship is under assault." Aria's voice was tight with fear. Her mother was on that ship. Junho didn't hesitate. Soul's Pride, hard burn to the flagship. "Boarding team, get ready. We're going in." "Captain, we'll be in range of 6 enemy cruisers," Sora warned. "I know. Do it anyway." They burned through enemy fire, taking hits that made the ship shudder and groan. Junho led the boarding team himself, something captains weren't supposed to do. But this was personal now. They were attacking his future mother-in-law, and more importantly, someone Arya loved. The fighting on the Valerian flagship was brutal. The Drenniks had taken half the ship and were pushing toward the bridge. Junho's team fought through corridors filled with smoke and blood. Engineer Kim Dae-yeon took a hit protecting Sora, his armor barely saving his life. But they pushed forward, driven by desperate need. They reached the bridge just as the Drenniks were about to breach the final door. Junho threw a flashbang grenade, and his team charged in firing. The close-quarters battle was vicious and short. When it ended, 12 Drenniks lay dead, and Junho's team had saved the Empress. Celine looked at him with new respect. "You came for me, your family," Junho said simply. "Or you will be in 3 weeks. Family protects family." Back in space, the battle reached its climax. The Drenniks, seeing their boarding assault fail, committed everything to one final push. But they had underestimated the alliance. Valerian precision and human adaptability, working together through the mental link between Arya and Junho, created something greater than either could achieve alone. The Drenniks' fleet broke. The survivors fled into deep space, leaving behind hundreds of wrecked ships. The defense of Talos Prime was successful. The invasion was stopped, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Thousands were dead, dozens of ships destroyed. Both fleets were battered and exhausted. When Junho finally returned to Seoul's Pride, he collapsed in his command chair and didn't move for an hour. Arya found him later in his quarters. She was exhausted too, her telepathic abilities drained from hours of coordinating the fleet. They held each other without speaking, both grateful to be alive, both mourning those who weren't. "We did it," she whispered. "We did. Together. I felt you during the battle. Your mind, your thoughts. It was like we were one person. I felt you too. It helped me stay focused, knowing you were there." The wedding took place 2 weeks later, giving both fleets time to recover and regroup. It was held on the Valerian homeworld, in the great crystal cathedral that had hosted royal weddings for 10,000 years. Representatives from 50 different species attended, along with millions of human and Valerian guests. The ceremony blended traditions from both cultures. Junho wore formal human military dress with Valerian ceremonial additions. Arya wore traditional royal robes in silver and blue, but with human flowers woven into her floating hair. They spoke vows in both languages, promising to honor each other's differences while building something new together. When they achieved full mental resonance during the ceremony, witnessed by billions through telepathic and video broadcasts, it was proof that the divide between species could be bridged. A human and a Valerian, joining not just bodies but minds and souls. The celebration lasted 3 days. Humans taught Valerians about dancing and music that didn't require telepathy. Valerians showed humans the beauty of mind-to-mind communication and crystal gardens. Children from both species played together, not caring about physical differences. On the final day, Junho and Arya stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Ships from both fleets flew overhead in formation, human and Valerian craft flying together. "What do we do now?" Arya asked. "We've changed so much already. Where do we go from here?" Junho smiled. "Everywhere. We're ambassadors now, not just to our own people, but to the entire galaxy. We'll travel to human worlds and show them Valerian wisdom. We'll visit Valerian colonies and teach them human adaptability. We'll prove that cooperation is stronger than isolation." That sounds like a lot of work. It will be, but we'll do it together. He took her hand. "You know, when I started this mission, I just wanted to negotiate for some mining rights. I never expected to fall in love with an alien princess." Arya laughed, a sound like music. "And I never expected to marry a human who was too stubborn to lose a fight he should have lost. Too brave to stay safe when people needed help. Too kind to see differences as barriers instead of opportunities. You chose me as your wife, remember? Shocked the entire galaxy. Best decision I ever made. You humans have a saying, right? About love conquering all? We do. And we also say that love is a choice we make every day. I choose you, Arya, today and every day after. And I choose you, Junho, always. 5 years later, their first child was born. She had her mother's silver eyes and her father's dark hair. She could sense thoughts telepathically like Valerians, but process them with human emotional depth and creativity. She was something new, a bridge between two species. Doctors from both civilizations studied her carefully, not as a subject, but as a miracle. She proved that human and Valerian genetics could combine successfully. More hybrid children followed as other mixed couples formed, inspired by the royal example. These hybrid children grew up learning both cultures, speaking both languages, understanding both ways of thinking. They became natural diplomats and mediators. Some became scientists who combined Valerian telepathic research with human neuroscience. Others became artists who blended the crystal sculptures of Vela with human painting and music. The alliance between humanity and the Valerian Empire grew stronger with each passing year. Other species joined, creating a confederation built on mutual respect rather than domination. The Drenics were eventually defeated by the combined fleets. Their threat ended forever. UNHO and Arya traveled the galaxy together for 30 years, serving as ambassadors and proof that differences didn't have to divide. They visited 100 worlds, met 1,000 species, and always found common ground. They proved that evolution wasn't just biological. Cultures could evolve too, growing stronger through diversity rather than purity. On their 30th anniversary, they returned to Earth. Junho showed Arya the planet where humanity began, the blue oceans and green forests he had described so long ago. They walked on beaches and climbed mountains and ate simple human food in small restaurants. Do you ever regret it? Junho asked one evening as they watched the sunset. They were older now, with lines on their faces and silver in Junho's hair. Giving up your royal life, marrying a human, dealing with all the complications? Arya took his hand, their minds touching gently through the bond they had strengthened over decades. Not for a single moment. You showed me that life is about choices, not obligations. That love is stronger than tradition. That the best way to honor your people is to help them grow, even if it means changing everything they thought they knew. We did change everything, didn't we? We did, and the galaxy is better for it. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Earth's sun set over the ocean. Two people from different worlds who had chosen each other, and in doing so, had changed the fate of civilizations. Their love story became legend, told to children of 100 species, as proof that understanding could bridge any divide. The human who was too brave to quit. The princess who was too curious to stay in her cage. Together, they showed the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't weapons or technology. It was the ability to see beyond differences, to find connection in unexpected places, and to choose love even when tradition demanded otherwise. And that, more than any military victory, was why humanity earned its place among the stars.